You've probably noticed my medals. How's this for a medal? Remember we talked about Panmunjom? Well, I was at Panmunjom. During the Korean War, I flew 1,000 hours on missions on the Korean airlift. You know, after the Second World War, Canada had one of the largest air forces in the world. And the people who were aircrew won a lot of medals because they lived a very dangerous life and they deserved the honors that they received. But then 5 or 10 years later, when the younger generation came along, we didn't have those medals, and they wanted to dress up the officers because we didn't have the medals at that time. So they came out with this gold belt that the officers had to wear. So that's fine, but I found out after I retired that the belt is actually made out of very cheap material because just hanging in my closet, it shrunk. Anybody know what this is? No one? What? Dog tags. Dog tags. Everybody in the military gets dog tags. Has your regimental number, your name, whether you're an officer or not, your blood type. And you've noticed it has 2 parts to it. The 2 parts are literally identical with the text that are on them. What happens is, in the heat of the battle, when you come across a body, you take the dog tags and you break them apart, and you give the bottom part, you take the bottom part and put it in the deceased's mouth. And then the chain and the remaining dog tag you give to an officer. So later on, when they find the bodies and have time to take them away, they look in the mouth to find out who it is. And as you accumulate these dog tags, the single one, and give it to an officer, the officer reports the number of dog tags he has. So headquarters then knows how many soldiers they've got ready for tomorrow. Because if they've got 40 dog tags, then it's 40 less than they had when they started that battle. So now in a movie, a war movie, sometimes you'll see in the scene an officer with a handful of dog tags. And very often they don't even mention them. It's just part of the props. But it does have a meaning, and now you'll understand what that is a little more. Any question on the dog tags? One, and that's number 2. Please. All you gotta do is take that corner of the map, you take this corner, open that up high. So everybody can see it. Higher, higher, higher. Everybody see that map now? That's a map of the North Atlantic, showing Europe on your right side, and Canada. Oh yeah, I think you got it upside down.
Boys.
Okay, so we got Europe over here, Iceland, Greenland, and Canada. And this is the Atlantic Ocean. And the North Pole is up here at the Red Cross. There's a couple of features here I'd like to show you. I've circled in blue a couple of squares, and there's several other of those squares on the map. That's the location of special rescue ships. Since the Titanic sank, anybody not know what the Titanic is? Everybody knows the story of the Titanic? Good. Ever since then, they've had ships sitting on the ocean, just in case there's another emergency. They go to that position for 6 weeks at a time, or until they're relieved. And they're just there in case there's an emergency. And they pass out weather reports and that sort of thing. Now, during the Second World War, the Atlantic had hundreds of German submarines that kept shooting torpedoes at our ships bringing supplies to Europe. So, one of the problems that the German Navy had was, how do they find out where they are after they've been buzzing around the Atlantic for a period of time? So the Germans had to devise a navigation system that would help the submarines calculate their position exactly. So when they knew a convoy was in the area, they know exactly what they have to do to find that convoy. By that point in the war, the Germans had captured most of Europe. And their engineers devised a special kind of radio transmitters. They built one in Norway at a place called Stavanger, one in France, Quimper, in Portugal, Luso, and in Spain at a place called Seville. And they broadcasted those special transmissions out over the Atlantic. And the submarines would come up at night, listen to these radio things, and they'd figure out exactly where they were. Didn't take long until the Allies captured a submarine. And once they had the maps, all they had to do was bomb these locations and the Germans wouldn't be able to use it anymore, right? But the Allies noticed something. And what they noticed was, and this is another secret I'm going to share with you right at the moment, what they noticed was that system not only broadcast out over the ocean, it also broadcast back over Europe. And up to that point, the Allies did not have a good method to guarantee they could hit their targets in Germany. So they tried to navigate to the targets in Germany using the German navigation system. And it worked better than any navigation system the Allies had. So they didn't bomb those transmitters. And it's still in use today. There's such a good system. So the Germans did produce something good. Now, how did those transmissions really work? Well, I'm going to show you. What they did was they printed the codes on the map, and they took the navigator's table and converted it to a light table. If you can imagine these overhead lights being the top of your table shining up, the navigator would turn on the lights and the codes would shine through. Don't move. You don't move. Hold that corner. Can you see the codes on the back of the map? Everybody see them? So that was the secret way they hid the codes. Okay. Thank you very much. I think we'll make the two of you sergeants. So we got one brigadier general and two sergeants.